As he sat in that old chair staring blankly out through the large living room window at the rain-drenched trees swaying in their yard, he knew that this night would be a turning point to anything that followed after. This had been their family home for the past 13 years. Years filled with good memories of laughter, shared moments, and love for each other. But the comfort and safety that the home had provided to his family all of those days ended abruptly the day they had brought Savannah home. Such an innocent-looking child. They invited her into their family of 4 with open, loving arms, and with every intent to help her heal through the tragedy she had endured. It was hard for anyone to understand why God would let such a young child experience such a terrible nightmare. Through a horrific turn of events, what was meant to be a beautiful weekend camping at the lake had taken a traumatizing turn that resulted in the drowning of Savannah's parents and older brother. Left on her own for over 48 hours at that lake with nowhere to go and unable to tend to the floating bodies just out of her reach in the water. How could a 6-year-old child even be expected to process the event, let alone cope with the loss of everything she knew and understood at that point in her life? Well, he knew better now. He knew enough now to question what actually happened that fateful night with Savannah and her original family. He only wished he had been wise enough to pick up on things earlier, before he had to watch in horror as his beautiful wife Marie tumbled down the main flight of stairs in their home, hurrying on her way to grab a second towel for Savannah, who screamed and complained from the bathroom about being cold after finishing her bath. Marie's wrecked and broken body fell right at his feet as he came rushing from the TV room, startled by the crashing sounds of something falling down the steps. His first flicker of annoyance at Savannah came on the day of the burial, as she huffed and moaned about the heat of the day, the dress she had to wear, and her boredom of the service. He couldn't be sure if his resentment and slight hint of hatred for her was born from his mourning for his lost wife, or because maybe he was sensing something more, something less innocent about this young child they had invited into their family. He tried to cope and forgive, trying even to love her still as he faced raising all 3 children on his own. It's a challenge he would have never taken on had he known the cost. If he could only turn back the clock to the day Marie had come home from the orphanage that she had volunteered at for a time, to tell him about the poor little girl who had lost her entire family in a tragic drowning accident. If only God would allow him the chance to choose differently, then he would never have had to see her broken and misshapen body lying at those stairs. Then he would never have had to watch his 2 beautiful children tragically burn in the house garage. The memory of running from the TV room toward the screams of agony coming from the garage that night tortures him like an unending echo in his mind. The 3 children had been playing together in the garage when the charging battery of their golf cart had exploded into a raging fire. But it was Savannah's face at the time that he can never forget. It wasn't a look of fear or even sadness. It was an expressionless gaze as she watched the flames engulfing her siblings on the concrete floor of the garage. A look of pure boredom at the event playing out just a few feet away from her. As he screamed in agonizing realization of what was happening, frantically trying to find something to smother the flames with, his mind had registered that Savannah had calmly walked back inside the house without even looking back. Yes, he knew now. He knew that after failing to see the evil he had so willingly invited into his home, and that after failing to be the protective husband and father to his slain family, he knew that this night, in this home, would be a turning point. He would either murder that young girl and end the evil she spreads, or he would succumb to the death she seems to wield, and he would join his family in the afterlife. He honestly almost preferred the latter. But he knew he had to at least try to rid the world of this monster disguised in a young girl's body. He slowly made his way down the hall. He knew Savannah had come down from her room to snack in the kitchen. He imagined her death would come either through strangulation or by way of the kitchen knives that were set beside the stove on the counter. He entered the kitchen to find Savannah standing alongside the kitchen island, almost as if knowing, waiting for him. The rain continued outside, and the moonlight from the window silhouetted her figure in the dark kitchen. He knew at that moment that she had been waiting, knowing his thoughts, knowing his intentions. He could almost sense her overwhelming disdain for him, for his lost loved ones, and her general disinterest in his motives. Her calm confidence communicated everything he needed to know. He would be the one to die on this night. He would join his family. She would continue on. The realization of her pure evil drew such an intensity of fear out of him. His face froze in terror at what had been living with them these past few years, slowly and intentionally chipping away at the family they once were. It was a gray, overcast day. The humidity was uncomfortable for the men in suits, and only slightly less so for the women in their long black dresses. No one seemed to notice the cold, emotionless gaze that defined Savannah's face that afternoon. Her general lack of interest in the event was all but ignored by the attendees who, for the most part, were just going through the motions of yet another burial. There was no amount of love or care inside of this young girl's soul. Only an empty, dark void filled with such disdain and pure, unfiltered evil. Any life that had the misfortune to cross paths with this child surely would not live past the encounter.